Hi everybody, Dr. Joan F. Land here. Today we're talking about a topic that could literally save your life. How you think about this topic could either keep you in deep misery or let you pop out into fresh air and bright sunshine. It is the topic of lapsing. So what is a lapse? A lapse is you have a plan for what you're going to eat that day and you can't follow it. You say, well, I'm not going to eat until this evening, and then you eat in the morning. Or you say, I'm not going to eat XYZ today, and you're eating it by 10 o'clock. Or you say, I'm only going to eat so many calories today, and you've eaten 3 times that by the time you go to bed. So lapsing is when you have a plan and then you can't follow it. So lapsing occurs for a lot of reasons. You might have triggering food in your food plan. You might have negative emotions. You might have pain in your body, or you might dislike your body. Or you might be in environments where you're getting a lot of food stimulation. Or you might have relationships that are stressful. All of these things, you might just be lonely. So all of these things can build up in your brain and cause you to eat something that you don't want to eat, that you weren't planning to eat. And in our westernized cultures, like I live in the United States, I'm visiting in the UK right now, there's a tremendous amount of food stimulation. And people need specific training in how to deflect that, how to create this bubble of protection around our brains so that the craving part of the brain doesn't get control. So when we're overstimulated by, there's 6 areas. There's emotions and body, there's environments and relationships, and the food itself and loneliness. So any combination of stimulation, food stimulation or emotional stimulation, stress stimulation from those 6 areas can build up inside our heads and cause us to lose control. Because when those factors are building up inside our head, what's going on is that the craving part of the brain is getting more control, more control, more control, which means the braking part of the brain, this is the willpower, and I don't want to eat that. That part of the brain is getting weaker and weaker and weaker. So as we go through our days and we get all this craving stimulation, eventually it has enough power to get control of our behavior center. And the frontal lobe loses that power. It actually shuts down. So lapsing in a westernized culture where there's lots of very addictive foods and people eating them in front of us and lots of advertising, it's unrealistic to think that you're going to go day after day after day in that stimulating environment and it's never, ever, ever going to build up to the point where it gets control. That is totally unrealistic. Not going to happen for most people. Most people will go through, I don't know how many lapses, somewhere between, they might lapse every day for months before they get control. Or they might lapse a few times, or they might never lapse. So there's a full range of the potential for lapsing. All you have to do is get into a really stressful time, get out of your own comfort zone, and at the same time somebody you love is pushing processed foods on you. You know, there can be any time, there can be a combination of factors that come together and then gives the craving part of the brain control. Now, why is it so important to understand that? It's because in some groups, support groups, there has grown up this idea that lapsing is a failure. Like, that's the weirdest thing. If you stop to think about it, okay, I live in this highly stimulating westernized culture and it's pounding on my craving brain all the time. Like, yeah, sometimes it's going to get the upper hand. I need to be in a support group that really is going to lift me right back up. If I get knocked down by all this stimulation in my environment or by a really tough emotion, I need a group that's going to pick me right back up. so that I'm not out there for a couple of years with the craving part of my brain in control. I need to get around my group and let my group put me back into my frontal lobe where I have control. But the idea that that's never going to happen, that's just crazy. It's just sick. So if you go into a group and they say, well, if you have lapsed, you can't talk for 90 days. At a time when you really need to be talking, you need to be talking about what's going on. Or suppose you ask somebody to be your guide. They say, okay, sure, I'll be your guide. And you start to work together and you're trying so hard and you're needing some time to get the skills and to get the cues and the triggers. You know, it takes skill to deflect triggers, and it takes skill to negotiate with household members and get all the triggers out of the house. It takes time for your body to stop hurting and for the cravings to stop. All these things take time, and it takes time to build skills to manage these sources of lapsing. So if you have a lapse, you know, your hand, the craving part of your brain gets the upper hand because you've been in an environment that wasn't right for you, and your hand reaches out, not under your control, under the control of the craving, not under control of frontal lobe, and you take a small quantity of something and you put it in your mouth. Work with your health professional who gave you this video, understands the role of lapsing. You can talk to that health professional about lapsing. That health professional will help you work through the 6 areas that cause lapsing, the triggering, which is emotions, our own bodies, stimulation from the environment, relationships, loneliness. You'll see improvement. What you're watching for is more and more days of control, less and less frequent lapses, and shorter lapses. So that's the process by which you gain control. More and more days of controlled eating, fewer and fewer lapses, and shorter lapses. That is a process. It's not something that happens just because we want it to happen or because somebody says, oh, here, you're on day 1. In the food itself. So work on those 6 areas, and so be good to yourself, be kind to yourself, be patient with yourself, and work with your health professional to get the triggering down and to get those days of controlled eating to go longer and longer. And of course, you're welcome to contact me at foodaddictionreset@gmail.com. Foodaddictionreset.com is our website. And of course, we're out at Facebook at Food Addiction Education. Thanks so much for being with me today.